Hello students, today we will discuss class 8th civics chapter 1, the Indian Constitution. Before we start the chapter, let's have an introduction of Indian Constitution. We have looked at Indian Constitution also in class 6th and 7th, but have you ever wondered why we need a constitution? Or been curious about how the constitution got written? Who wrote it? So, in this chapter, we will discuss all these issues and also look at the key features of the Indian Constitution. First of all, why does a country need a constitution? In today's world, most of the country have a constitution. While all democratic countries are likely to have a constitution, it is not necessary that all countries that have a constitution are democratic. The constitution serves several purposes. First, it lays out certain ideals that form the basis of the kind of country that we as citizens aspire to live in. Or put another way, a constitution tells us what the fundamental nature of our society is. A country is usually made up of different communities or people who share certain beliefs but may not necessarily agree on all the issues. For example, in 1934, the Indian National Congress made the demand for a constituent assembly. During the Second World War, this assertion for independent constituent assembly formed only of Indian gained momentum, and this was convened in December 1946. You can see the photo on the left side. It shows some of the members of Constituent Assembly between December 1946 and November 1949. The Constituent Assembly drafted a constitution for independent India, free to shape their destiny at last after 150 years of British rule. The members of the Constituent Assembly approached this task with the great idealism that the freedom struggle had helped produce. You will read more about the work of Constituent Assembly later in the chapter. Here in the photo you can see the first Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, addressing the Constituent Assembly. Now, we will discuss some situation and the differences between a monarchy and democracy. For example, here we are taking the country Nepal. Nepal was a monarchy. The previous constitution of Nepal, which had been adopted in 1990, reflected the fact that the final authority rested with the king. A people's movement in Nepal fought for several decades to establish democracy, and finally in 2006 they succeeded in putting an end to the powers of the king. Now the people have to write a new constitution to establish Nepal as a democracy. Here you can see some of the examples of misuse of powers. For example, this is a picture of a classroom. You can see Anil is the class monitor, and when the class teacher leaves the class, she gives the responsibility to the class monitor. And you can see the conversation here. Anil, today I am going to report you to Mrs. Rao. But what have I done? In this picture, you can see the misuse of power, how the class monitor is misusing his power. And in this picture, you can see the misuses of domination and majoritism. Now, the key features of Indian constitutions. The beginning of the 20th century, the Indian national movement had been active in the struggle for independence from British rule. During the freedom struggle, the nationalists had devoted a great deal of time to imagine and planning what a free India would be like. Key features of Indian Constitution. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is known as the father of Indian Constitution. He believed that his participation in the Constituent Assembly helped the scheduled caste get some safeguard in the draft constitution. But he also stated that although the laws might exist, scheduled caste still had reason to fear because the administration of these laws were in the hands of caste Hindu officers. Therefore, he urged scheduled caste people to join the government as well as the civil services. The next feature of Indian Constitution is federalism. This refers to the existence of more than one level of government in the country. In India, we have government at the state level and at the center. Panchayati Raj is the third tier of government in India. The vast number of communities in India mean that a system of government needed to be devised that did not involve only persons sitting in the capital city, New Delhi, and making decisions for everyone. Instead, it was very important to have another level of government in the states so that decisions could be made for that particular area. The next feature of Indian Constitution is parliamentary form of government. The different tiers of government that you just read about consist of representatives who are elected by the peoples. Constitution of India guarantees universal adult suffrage for all the citizens. According to this, every citizen in India above 18 years of age is having the right to vote irrespective of his her social background, caste, religion or class in the society. Separation of powers. According to the Constitution, there are three organs of government. These are legislature, executive and the judiciary. The legislature refers to our elected representative. The executive is a smaller group of people who are responsible for implementing laws and running the government. And the third branch, the judiciary, is the system of courts in the country. In order to prevent the misuse of power by any one branch of government, the Constitution says that each of these organs should exercise different powers. Through this, each organ acts as a check on the other organs of government and ensure the balance of power between all three. The next feature of Indian Constitution is fundamental rights. In this section, the fundamental rights are offered and referred as conscience of Indian Constitution. Colonial rule had created a certain suspicion of the state in the mind of the nationalists, and they wanted to ensure a set of written rights would be guard against the misuse of state power in independent India. Therefore, the Constitution provide us some fundamental rights, and these rights are right to equality. All persons are equal before law. It means that all persons shall be equally protected by the law of the country. Every person has access to all public places, playgrounds, hotels, shops, etc. in the country. The state cannot discriminate any person in matters of employment also. But there are exceptions to this that you will read about later in this book. The next right is right to freedom. This includes the right of freedom of speech and expression, right to form association, right to move freely, and right to practice any profession, occupation or business. Next right is right against exploitation. Our Constitution prohibits human trafficking, forced labor, child labor, means every children under 14 years of age. The next right is right to freedom of religion. According to this right, all the Indian citizens are free to follow their religion and profess, practice and propagate of religion of their choice. The next right is cultural and educational right. According to this right, all minorities, religious or linguistics, can set up their own educational institutions in order to preserve and develop their own culture. And the sixth right is right to constitutional remedies. This allows citizens to move the court if they believe that any of their fundamental rights have been violated by the state. The next feature of Indian Constitution is secularism. It means a state is having no official language or official religion. You may understand the ways in which a country's history often determines the kind of constitution that country adopts for itself. And constitution plays a very crucial and important role in a country. Just like in the game of football, a change of constitutive rules will affect the game. Indian Constitution has been amended over the years to reflect new concern of the polity. Often a major change in the constitution means change in the fundamental nature of the country. As we saw in the case of Nepal and how it needs to adopt a new constitution after it has recently become a democratic society. With this, we end up this chapter.